I've chosen a book to read for Passover today that really is not a Passover book, but it's one I believe that reminds us to lift our spirits even during difficult times. Yes, we're living in a world in this year 2020, 5780, in which there's a lot of pain, even death, and some families are overwhelmed and devastated. For many of us, and I'm hoping it's most of us, we are only inconvenienced. Yes, it's lonely, but it's an inconvenience that we hope and pray we can get through until we can gather once again in beautiful numbers. And this book uplifts our spirits and reminds us to look at the blessings in our lives. It's called Meshka, the Tale of Meshka, the Kvetch. In the village of Hemer lived Meshka, who was considered by all to be the village Kvetch. Now, Kvetch is a Yiddish word for complainer, and that's just what Meshka did, complain. From morning till night, nothing was right. When the baker would ask her how she was feeling, Meshka would say, "Oy vey, my back, it feels as if I carried the wall of Jericho itself, and my feet, let me tell you, they are swollen to the size of melons." Then the baker would shake his head from side to side. When the dressmaker would ask how her children were, Meshka would say, "Oy vey, my son, he does nothing but read and sit around the house like a bump on a kosher pickle. And my daughter, she only visits me once a month. It's as if I don't exist the other 29 days. Then the dressmaker would shake her head from side to side. And when the rabbi, had to pronounce it that way, when the rabbi would ask Meshka how her house was, Meshka would say, "Oy vey, if only it were a home, but it's more like a box. Why my late husband couldn't have built a larger house, I'll never know." Then the rabbi would shake his head from side to side. And so it would go. No matter who was listening, Meshka had something to complain about. Now on one particular morning, Meshka woke up and looked at the heavens and said, "If only I can have the strength to bear another miserable day." And as she spoke, her tongue itched. Not an ordinary itch, but a weird, tingly kind of itch. "What is this itch?" said Meshka, crossing her eyes and trying to look at her tongue. She could see nothing unusual, so she went into the kitchen and prepared breakfast. Then she called her son, but he did not come. "Such a lazy boy," said Meshka, "like a bump on a kosher pickle." Meshka went to her son's room. He was nowhere to be seen, but there, on his bed, was a huge green pickle with one big bump on it. Meshka gasped at the sight. Then she searched the house for her son, but she could not find him. Where could he be in this little box of a house? Meshka wondered out loud, and at that, her house groaned and creaked and began to shrink. Soon it was so small that Meshka's head was poking out the front door and her legs were sticking out the windows. Meshka was frantic, but she screamed and kicked until she had wiggled free. "I gotta see my daughter and tell her these strange things," panted Meshka as she ran through the village. "If she remembers her mama," she added. When she reached her daughter's home, she knocked on the door. "Yes? What is it, old woman?" said her daughter, opening the door. "What is, old woman?" asked Meshka. "I'm your mama." "You're not my mama," said the daughter, and she closed the door firmly. Meshka was dumbfounded. "What is happening?" she exclaimed, clutching at her heart. "Isn't it enough that I'm not well, that my back aches as if I'm carrying the wall of Jericho itself, that my feet are swollen like melons?" At those words, Meshka's feet became 10-pound melons. She lost her balance and rolled to the ground. As she fell, a huge wall appeared, pinning her down. And there she lay for a good hour, moaning over her dilemma. Suddenly Meshka heard a voice. "And how is your home?" Meshka looked up and saw the rabbi smiling down at her. "Oh, Rabbi," cried Meshka, "let me tell you what has happened." The rabbi listened as Meshka told him of her latest troubles. When she had finished, the rabbi shook his head from side to side. "I have heard of such cases," he said. "Did your tongue itch a strange kind of itch this morning?" "Yes, yes," Meshka exclaimed. The rabbi shook his head again. "I'm afraid you have the Kvetch's itch." "The what?" asked Meshka. "The Kvetch's itch," repeated the rabbi. "It happens rarely and only to a Kvetch, and it causes everything the Kvetch complains about to come true." "Oy vey," cried Meshka, "I have caused these things to happen with my own words. How can this itch be cured?" "It cannot," said the rabbi. "You will have it the rest of your life." At hearing this, Meshka let out a mournful wail. "However," said the rabbi, raising a finger, "if you praise the good in your life, these problems you mention will cease." Meshka frowned, thinking about what the rabbi had said. She didn't quite know how to praise because she had never done it before. "Very well, Rabbi," said Meshka. "I will try." She cleared her throat and began. "My son, who is lazy—" "No, no," said the rabbi quickly. "Praise your son." So Meshka started again. "My son, who is good—" "Yes, yes," cried the rabbi. "Go on." "He reads to seek knowledge," continued Meshka. "My house is snug and well built. I'm lucky that my daughter, who is busy with her own family, visits me once a month. I'm grateful that I am living and in good health for a woman of my years." And at these words, the wall disappeared. Meshka's feet became feet again, and Meshka's daughter opened the door to her house. "Mama," she said, "I was just coming to visit you." When Meshka returned to her home, she found it just as her husband had built it. And when she went into her son's room, there he was reading a book and smiling. Oh, this is my favorite part. I have to read this one again. Absolute favorite part. There he was reading a book and smelling a bit like pickle juice. I like that part. And from that day on, Meshka would start to complain and say, "Oy vey." And she quickly said, instead, "Things are good, and I am happy." And soon, she was. Chag Sameach.